Hey everyone, welcome to the NoochieCast. My name is Matt Bianucci, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 3 of the NoochieCast. Today's episode, as you can see, is all about 2020 gaming predictions for the year of 2020, first year of the decade. But before that, I want to go over some news, a little bit of what I've been playing for a bit, and just talk about games. So, yeah, let's jump right into it and talk about some news from the past week, the week of January 17th to the 24th. And let's start by continuing something that we talked about last week, and that is game delays. And the reason for that is that there's been another major game delayed further into the ether, and that is Dying Light 2. While the games that were delayed last week, which were Final Fantasy VII, Avengers, and Cyberpunk, those were all given other release dates. They were all pushed back, a couple months. Even honestly, Final Fantasy just a few weeks. But Dying Light 2 didn't even have a release date to start with. It was just slated to come out Q1 2020, but now they have just been saying that it has no release date. So it's delayed indefinitely. Hope it comes out this year. I don't know. I'm always suspicious when games are delayed indefinitely, as I feel like a lot of people are. Dying Light 2 is a game that I thought it seemed like it was on pace, but it always seemed like it was super ambitious compared to the original. And there was definitely that inkling of, are you going to be able to get this done by the time you want it to be done? And especially coming out in Q1 spring 2020, there's a lot coming out, and I feel like they definitely didn't want to compete. Plus, there's, I'm sure, a lot of things that they still need to polish, still need to finish up. What I'm hoping is that it didn't get fucked. You know what I mean? It didn't get to a point where they had to restart something or they had to make major changes to the game. And that's what I'm a little concerned about, is that this game is going to be stuck in development hell for a little bit. Because when you delay something indefinitely, they literally are saying, we don't know when it's going to come out. So it could be whenever. This game could come out in August, or it could come out in 2023, or it could never come out. Who knows? And that's the reason I'm a little concerned about it. I'm really looking forward to it based on the gameplay things they've shown at E3. I think it looks super cool, the way that the parkour has improved and become such a core part of the game, even compared to Dying Light 1. And then the whole choice aspect of it, the way they made it seem is that the choices are the game, and that it's kind of that dual game thing where there's the daytime thing where you're making all the choices, and then the nighttime where you're just trying to survive. And I think it looks really cool and really interesting, and I'm hoping that it pans out, because the way that it's being touted right now, is that they're not sure when it's going to come out, and I'm, to be completely honest, a little concerned that it might never come out. So, who knows? I guess we'll look forward to more information on that in the coming months. I feel like they'll probably show something at E3. Hopefully they will have talked about it either by E3 or at E3 to say something like, hey, we're thinking we're going to come out in August or October or something. Or, hey, we don't know yet, but here's a new thing that we wanted to put in. Because if they haven't said anything by then, that's in 5 months, 4.5 months, that means something bad has happened. Something has really gone wrong, and, it might never come out. But who knows? Next on the news is Ninja Theory has announced that they're working on a new project called Project Mara. And Ninja Theory, as I'm sure you're familiar, is the developer of Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, among other things. And after just having announced Hellblade 2 at the Game Awards last month, they just announced that both Hellblade 2 is the largest team that they've ever had working on a game, and that seems to be a full-blown sequel, Xbox exclusive. As we know, Xbox acquired them last year. Was that 2 years ago? Whatever. But we know that Xbox acquired them. Hellblade 2 will be Xbox exclusive. It looks like that'll be a fully fledged AAA game. But now they're announcing Project Mara, which seems to be much more experimental. Still in the vein of Hellblade in that it's a horror game, but it seems to be much more of they're trying something new with this, and it's something that I really like. So in their press statement, they say Project Mara will be a real-world and grounded representation of mental terror based on real lived experience accounts and in-depth research. So that seems like they're really building off of what they learned with Hellblade, and it seems like they've kind of found what they're good at. Now, obviously, they've done good things in the past, but this seems like something that they've really latched onto, with both Hellblade being very mentally tortured focused, and Hellblade 2 obviously being that, but bigger. And Project Mara seems like it's taking that and really kind of leaning into it and making it the point of the game, instead of just like, an overarching, very significant but not necessarily the only theme of Hellblade. I will say, I don't think I've talked about it on here. I wasn't a huge fan of Hellblade, just for a bunch of reasons. I thought the story was a little, kind of cheesy. I thought it got caught up in its own themes, that it forgot to put an actual good game in there. I thought the combat was very underwhelming. But I did think that the representation of mental illness was easily the best part of the game. And I think that if they are prepared to create a game that is specifically based on that, that it's really making that part of the game the core focus of it, I am really excited to see that, because I think that that's the best thing that they've done with Hellblade. And it seems like they've put a lot of research and development into that kind of understanding of what those mental illnesses are. And I think that it has a lot of potential. Plus, with the backing and resources of Microsoft behind them, there's legitimately, it could be one of the best games, specifically one of the best horror games, in terms of how it accurately depicts mental illness, as well as inflicts that upon the player. So yeah, I'm really excited for that. I think it could be cool. Obviously, they haven't really announced much. Project Mara is probably not its full name, unless it could be. I don't think it will be. So it's obviously in early development. Hellblade 2, I'm sure, will come out first. But yeah, I'm excited for it. Excited to see where it goes. And we can move on. Now, the next piece of news is a bunch of smaller pieces that are just talking about a bunch of new trailers and gameplay things we've seen this week. So the first is Doom Eternal. There was a big blowout of previews. An embargo ended, and so there was a bunch of previews that came out, just of 15, 20 minutes of gameplay, talking about how the game flows and everything. And I just want to say, you can go look up the gameplay for yourself. It looks incredible. Doom, the original, or the 2016 one, was so much fun, was so highly touted as being just a masterpiece in gameplay, where it was so fast-paced, it was so fluid, it didn't take any time out of it to overwhelm you with story or to really have you think about anything else other than just killing demons. And Doom Eternal seems just like that, but better. And I think that Doom Eternal seems like it could be one of the best shooters of the year for sure. It knows what they're doing. They are super human at creating first-person shooters, especially those that have really nice and well optimized games on hardware. So they know what they're doing. They're really smart. I'm excited to see how Doom Eternal pans out, but it's looking fantastic. Can't wait to play it. It comes out March 20th. That's in less than 2 months as I'm recording this. So there's really nothing that could hold back my hype for this game. Next is Neo 2. There was a new story trailer that came out. Not really much to say on this, honestly. I thought it looked cool. Neo basically it was Sekiro before Sekiro happened. So it was that kind of Souls-like game before, set in feudal Japan, but that it was before Sekiro came out. So they kind of had some direct competition there. And I will say I do like Sekiro, so this one's got some competition. But Neo 2, story trailer came out. The trailer looks good. Didn't really tell you anything, but I just wanted to say that it seems fun. I never played the original Neo, so I can't really tell you what it's like gameplay wise from my perspective. But Neo 2 comes out March 13th, and I'm at least excited to see where it goes. I can't say I'm particularly enthused about it, just because I never played the original, and there are a lot of other games coming out. But I'm excited to see where it goes, because I know people talk about it as if it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and I don't think that that's true, but I will at least keep an eye on it. And last one for this news segment is Disintegration. Now, I will admit, I don't know that much about Disintegration. I heard about it a few months ago, or whenever it was that they announced it, that it was coming out. It was a shooter that takes a lot of elements from other shooters that was made partially or in part by the co-creator of Halo. But I didn't know much else about it. I felt like they didn't really announce much, and I didn't really care. But they came out with a new trailer and gameplay segments, and then announced that there's a technical beta that comes out next Tuesday, January 28th. So I watched the gameplay. I think it looks interesting, at least. I can't say that it's breaking any new ground in what I've seen, but it definitely looks like it's combining elements in a nice way that you could say something like Jedi Fallen Order did, where it didn't really do much on its own, but at least it is taking elements from others and hopefully doing them well. So hopefully, I'll be honest, I didn't read into what the criteria for getting into the technical beta are. I hope it just means that if you're a person, you can get one. So if you are unaware, am a person, and hopefully I can get into that technical beta, which would allow me to give you my thoughts next week. But if not, then who knows? But that's that. That'll do it for the news. Yeah, there's really not much going on. It's still the end of January, so there's very little happening. I feel like until we start getting maybe news about PS5 or Xbox Series X announcements, events, things like that, there probably won't be that much going on other than these delays in previews, which are interesting in and of themselves, but I don't think that they're particularly fantastic in terms of news, because they're either, hey, let's get more excited, or hey, let's get less excited. Now, you could say that that's everything, that's every piece of news, but I think there's more. I think there's more that we could do. But for now, that's what we're gonna have to live with. So we're gonna move on. So next, I want to talk about a little bit what I've been playing, and this is going to be a little anticlimactic because I have been most of my time has been put into a game that I cannot talk about. I received a game, and I'm not currently allowed to divulge any information about it. I'll be able to talk about it next week, so wait for that there. But yeah, I've been playing that, so that's where the majority of my time has gone. I will say I've put a couple hours more into both Fire Emblem, Three Houses, and Tetris check last week to see my real thoughts about them. Again, both still fantastic. Tetris 99 is still just an unbelievable combination of Tetris with Battle Royale. I still do not understand how they got that to work so well, but it's done. It's ready, obviously, because it's out. But it's really just an incredible way that they put those two together, and I'm still pretty addicted to it. But the other thing I want to talk about is with what I've been playing is kind of cheating, because I technically haven't been playing these games, but I downloaded them, so it counts. And those two games are Indivisible and A Plague Tale: Innocence. Now, Indivisible and Plague Tale, two games that I have been wanting to play throughout the past year. Both of them specifically Plague Tale, got a lot of nods in Game of the Year stuff. They didn't win too many, but they were at least nominated for a bunch of things. And I had been noticing that they were being nominated for things and being talked about a lot as disruptors in ways that Indivisible was kind of a cool, different take on different gameplay elements, and Plague Tale was just a really nice story that was really well told, kind of Last of Us-esque. And so I had just heard both of those, and but never bought either of them. And then yesterday, or 2 days ago, one of the days, I just see that they're both at the same time coming to Xbox Game Pass, along with two other games called Sea Salt and Fishing Sim World Pro Tour. I was unfamiliar with both, but the two that I'm talking about here, the Indivisible and Plague Tale, they cement the fact that I think Xbox Game Pass is one of the best developments to ever come in gaming. Not ever, but one of the best developments to come into gaming this generation. And the reason for that is I think it's just one of the greatest deals ever, at least for someone like me who plays a lot of games. I didn't even notice it, but Game Pass is how I get most of my games now. Now, that's not to say I don't buy a lot of games or I get a bunch of games too for review, but when I'm just looking for a game to play, Game Pass has become the way that I access them. And this just happened without me even thinking about it. I don't even remember really subscribing to Game Pass. It's like Game Pass is this omnipresent feature that was just there, and before that it wasn't, but it never came into my life. So I can't describe how much I am appreciative of Game Pass. Maybe this is just my love letter to Xbox Game Pass, an ode, if you will, that Game Pass just has become such a meaningful part of my life that it has become the thing that I spend so much of my time with. When I'm not with it, I think about it a lot, and I'm in love. I'm in love with you, Xbox Game Pass. So I hope you know that. I hope you love me too. You clearly do. You keep giving me games, so many good things to play. So I just wanted to note that. I just wanted to confess my love, because I wanted to play these games, and then on the same day they come out with two games that I had been thinking about for a while. So Xbox Game Pass, I love you. Also, side note, I just want to note this here. I believe that at some point within the next 4 to 5 months that Control will be coming to Xbox Game Pass. Honestly, just mark that as number one for my 2020 predictions, which is a great segue into my 2020 predictions, which are the next segment in this podcast. Number one, Control will be coming to Game Pass as an E3 announcement in June. So Control, Game Pass, 2020, bada bing, bada boom. Now, think of that as my prelude. So 2020 predictions. I just wanted to talk about some things that I think will be happening over the next year. Obviously, we have things like the PS5 and the Xbox Series X launching, so saying that a new console is going to launch for either company is not a good prediction because that's fucking completely obvious. Not even obvious, they've announced it, so it's confirmed. But I did want to just, talk about some of my predictions, things I think will happen, a couple more out there ones, a couple pretty safe ones, but these are, just as a disclaimer, these are just what I think are going to happen, and I very honestly most likely will be wrong, and I'm good with that because some of these are kind of not great. But it's all about getting hype. It's all about enjoying gaming, and it's all about just loving the thing that we love. So, and that I'm not talking about Game Pass. Actually, I am. That was number one. But into predictions. Let's move on to my first one, and this is one that I'm pretty confident about, and that is the PS5 will launch later this year, obviously, with Horizon Zero Dawn 2, whatever it's called, and no other PS5 exclusive first-party games. Now, this means that Horizon 2 will launch from Guerrilla. It will be announced at whatever event they're holding, whenever that is, and that it will be announced there, and it will come out at launch. But and I honestly think that's, if it doesn't come out at launch, that's a little disappointing because they will have had, what is that, 3.5 years? It seems like the timing is perfect for Horizon 2 to come out, and if it doesn't, I would be legitimately surprised. But the second part of this, obviously, is the no other PS5 exclusive first-party games. Part of this is that the PS5 will have it'll obviously have a lot of games coming out because of third parties, and every PS4 game will be backwards compatible. But I'm struggling to see which third-party games, or which first-party games, will be coming out. And the only things that I can think of are like Sony London, like London studio, Japan studio, things like that. So okay, all right. Let me amend this. No other major PS5 exclusive first party games. So if a company like Japan studio comes out and releases, like, I don't know, Knack 2.5, I wouldn't call that a major first party game, because that doesn't seem like the game that's going to blow the socks off of everyone. But if, say, if Sucker Punch has Ghost of Tsushima delayed and they just call that a PS5 exclusive first-party game, then that's a major release, because that's a AAA game. So I guess there's some leeway on this, a little bit of interpretation as to what I mean by major. But I think that I will say there's definitely there is probably going to be some kind of London studio, Japan studio, smaller game that comes out at launch for the PS5 that's not already released on the PS4. But I don't think that, other than Horizon 2, there will be something that's really a system seller that will make you want to buy a PS5. So, yeah, I think the PS5, because all of the PlayStation first-party studios have kind of blown their load the past year or two, they all have some time until they're ready to release what their next games will be. I think the next one is probably Insomniac. After that, it'll be like Spider-Man 2 might come out early 2021, probably, I think more likely fall 2021 with Spider-Man 2. And then after that, I don't even know, like Bend maybe. I think Santa Monica will probably come out. They'll definitely have God of War 2, obviously. But that coming out in early 2018, that seems like a late 2021 at the earliest kind of game. So anyway, Horizon 2, no other major PS5 exclusive first parties, and yeah. So, next prediction is a heavily rumored one, but there's a little bit of technicalities here. So this prediction is Xbox will reveal Lockhart before the launch of Series X. They will name it Series S, so it's Xbox Series S with Series X, and they will they will announce it before Series X launches, but release it after. So there's a lot going on here. So Xbox will, throughout the year, they will have some event where, so they've already announced Series X. They will have some event where they announce Series S, which is the lower, less powerful, maybe digital only Xbox console for the next generation. And they will call it Series S, and they will talk about it. They will announce things about it, but they will plan to release it not at the same time as Series X. It will be sometime after, probably next spring, something like that. It seems like, to me, Series X is Xbox is in a tough situation because it doesn't seem like they are touting two different consoles here, like that they're really showing that they will have two, but it seems so likely that they will. So I think they're in a tough situation if they're trying to say both X and S. And I think that they want to get out of the gate with X and show people that this is what the hardware looks like, and these are what games can look like, and these are how games will play. But then in the future, they will have Series S come out and say, you know what, if you want that kind of lower powerful but less expensive version, then here's your console. For reference, I think both Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 will be $500 at launch, and maybe Series S will be $400. That could fluctuate. Maybe Series X and PS5 will be $600, and Series S will be like $450. I don't know. I'm not the person making these decisions, but I don't think either company will hit $400 with their first release of the consoles with either Series X or PS5, just because of rising technology costs to make these uber powerful consoles. It's just hard to do. So I think it'll definitely be disappointing that neither will be able to hit 400, but I think they will both match at 500. So yeah, that's prediction 2. Let's move on to prediction 3, and that is a bit of a smaller one and actually following pattern for the last couple of years, that Xbox will announce at least one more major studio acquisition this year. Now, this, as I said, is following pattern from the past couple of years where they've announced major studio acquisitions, things like Ninja Theory that we talked about earlier, Obsidian, Playground, a bunch of others. And it seems like what they're doing is, it's not what it seems like it is. This is what they're doing, is they're beefing up their first-party lineup so that they can compete with Sony in the first-party lineup, matchup. And this is something that they've not been able to do over the past generation or two. They've had Halo and Gears and Forza, and then a smattering of other first-party games here and there, like a Fable and things like that, but they haven't really been able to match the first-party quality lineup of games that Sony has had, when Sony has a lineup of studios that includes Naughty Dog and Sucker Punch and things like that, like a Santa Monica who puts out game after game after game, or even like a Sony San Diego that puts out the best, probably, in my opinion, the best sports game that comes out every year. So I think that Xbox will announce, maybe not at E3, but at some point throughout the year, they will announce that they've acquired a major studio. Now, which studio this will be is up in the air. I think it might be Don't Nod, the developer of Life is Strange. And the precursor to this is that Xbox has an Xbox Game Studios published Don't Nod game coming out that's, I'm not sure if it's called Tell Me Why. I'm not sure if it's set in the Life is Strange universe or if it's connected or if it's just that kind of genre. But I think that would be an interesting way to bring on that kind of narrative-focused game with the pedigree that Don't Nod has after Life is Strange. Now, obviously, they're owned by Square, so it would be a whole thing. But I think it could happen. The other one that people have talked about, I think is less likely than Don't Nod, but could happen still, is Crystal Dynamics. They obviously have their own thing going on with Avengers, and Square might be pushing them to make more games. So I don't know if they would be open to selling Crystal. But there is a chance, I think, that Xbox just comes in and is like, hey, we've worked with you on Tomb Raider and things of the sort, so why don't you come on and come to our team? They buy them off Square, and then they make games for Xbox from now on. Obviously, Avengers would still be in the multi-platform sphere, so it wouldn't be an Xbox exclusive. But I do think it's possible. Maybe Xbox comes out and announces some random studio that I didn't even think of. Maybe they come out and buy Naughty Dog. Who knows? Could happen. But I do think they will announce some studio acquisition this year because I don't think they're done with that acquiring process. Now, honestly, it could even be that they acquire a Japanese studio because I know Phil Spencer's been tweeting about being in Japan talking to developers, and they definitely need to beef up their Japanese gaming portfolio, and that's something that Phil Spencer's talked about a lot. So I think that could happen too if there's some Japanese developer. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but there's definitely something that they could buy to add to their portfolio that would be really beneficial. So we'll see. I definitely think they'll buy someone, so I'm leaving that pretty vague, but we'll see. Next, EA will show that Jedi Fallen Order has influenced them and release at least one major game without live service or microtransaction elements. So the thing here is that I think that EA has started to learn their lesson in that they are starting to listen to fans and people on the internet, which is not always a great idea, but I think they have started to listen to people and realize that not every game needs to be a microtransaction kind of live service, online, multiplayer-focused game. And I think that's why they allowed Jedi Fallen Order to be made. Now, obviously, that had the backdrop and the very high floor of being a Star Wars game, so it allowed them to see how a game like this would do. But I think Jedi Fallen Order has outsold their expectations. Now, I don't have any proof on that, but I think it has outperformed what they thought it was going to do, both critically and commercially. It was top. I think it was either 5 or 6 best-selling game of the year, and that includes like Call of Duty and all the sports games and everything, which is really impressive, even being a Star Wars game. But also critically, it won Games of the Year from places. It's getting 8s, 9s, 10s from around the world. I think they will start to learn that games like this are not only welcome but necessary in the gaming ecosystem. And I think that they will supplement their existing games. Now, obviously, games like Madden and NHL and things like that, all their sports games will always be those kinds of microtransaction online games because that's what those games are. And even games like Battlefield, which I don't think is going to come out this year because I'm pretty sure they've announced for 2021 to 2022. But even those kinds of games, that doesn't need to be a single-player focused story because that's not what that game is. It's not what it does well. But I do think EA will announce some game this year or release some game this year that does not have multiplayer or microtransaction elements. That's just a full package from the start that you can play for $60, and it'll do well. Now, they have announced a new Star Wars game called Rise to Power. I really don't know much about it because they haven't talked about it a lot. This is the only game that I could find that they've announced that isn't like an already online game, maybe a Need for Speed, but other than that, this is the only game that I could find that they've either announced or has been hinted at that could come out from EA this year. But I do think that they will do something to show that they're learning and to show that they are really kind of coming back to the middle in how they balance between those live service, multiplayer, very microtransaction kind of revenue first games versus the single player kind of player first games. And I know that that's very reductive in how you think of how games are made, because everything is a revenue first model. I understand that. But at least the microtransaction ones are overtly revenue first, if that makes sense. I know that EA wants to make games that will make money, and I think with this prediction I'm saying that these games are able to make money, and they do make money, and EA has started to learn that, so that both of them can be made in complement to each other, and they're both able to be successful, and EA and others will start to move towards that balance between them. So, next, this is a little bit of an out there one, kind of a flimsy one, because it's a little hard to tell. And by that, you're going to hear this and you're going to think that's actually not hard to tell at all, but just hear me out. So, this prediction, 2020 will have the most games of any year to score 95 or above on Metacritic. Now, you would think, hey, Matt, that's actually pretty objective, and there really should just be, it's really easy to count just which games have 95. Now, the thing is that currently I could go through, I didn't have a chance to go through and actually list out every single one, every single year that has 95 or above all these games. And especially it's super annoying because it places every time a game is released. So, for example, GTA 5 is on there 5 separate times because it released on 5 separate platforms and had 95 in every one. Also in different years. And you know what I mean there. But I do think that there are going to be a bunch of games this year that come out and get a 95 or above on Metacritic. Right now, the one I could count just very quickly was 2011 had 3. Now that I'm seeing, I think the 3 were Skyrim, Portal 2, and Batman Arkham City. I'm dumb for not having written them down. But I think that there are going to be at least 3 games this year that score a 95 or above on Metacritic. Now, those games, the 2 obvious ones that people will predict are The Last of Us 2 and Cyberpunk. That's certainly possible. I definitely think at least one of those games will get it. I'm thinking Doom Eternal, like I mentioned earlier, could get it. Final Fantasy VII could get it if it's done right. I don't know if the new Rocksteady game that I am definitely not going to talk about later is good enough. That'll be it. Things like that. I think there's huge potential for games to be really, really good this year. So I'm really optimistic about their critical scores, and obviously Metacritic is boiled down every review score into one score, and it also is super reductive, but I am optimistic that it will at least be able to say generally games this year are really good, and here are 3 games at least that are really, really high quality, top of the line games. So that's that. Next, I want to discuss the launches of the next consoles, and in that prediction, this one is super vague, because my prediction is the Xbox Series X will generally be seen as having a better launch than the PS5. Now, obviously, this is incredibly subjective and could be could be skewed many different ways. But I think if you look back at the last generation's launch, it is very, very, very obvious which console had the better launch. Not only in sales, but in PR, in marketing, in everything that goes with it. The PlayStation 4 had a better launch than the Xbox One because of everything that went in before it, and the fact that the PS4 sold 1 million copies in a day, but the Xbox One didn't. It didn't even come close. And it has continued to be like that in the entire generation. I think that this generation, it's going to flip, and not just because a lot of generations tend to flip, or tend to at least shift. I think that the reason is the Xbox One, since Xbox was taken over by Phil Spencer, has done so many things right to create the goodwill that gamers want, with things like the Xbox Game Pass and acquiring all these studios and just a bunch of different deals and listening to the fans, like backwards compatibility and things like that I think Xbox has gained a lot of goodwill. And the PlayStation 5 seems like it might be coming at a weird time. So like I mentioned, I think that the PS5 is going to launch with only one major first-party game. And I think there's a chance that Sony starts to become a little too laid back in their assumption that they're going to win, because the PS4 has such a huge lead in the way that the PS2 went to the PS3. I think there's a chance that the PS4 goes to the PS5. Now, maybe this is in price like the problem was with the PS3, or it's in games, like there won't be any games that are coming out for the PS5. I just dropped my fucking chapstick. Or some other slew of problems that would cause the PS5 to launch at a kind of weird, in a weird spot, in a less than successful spot. I think that's definitely possible. Obviously, I'm predicting that it's going to happen. I'm not convinced that either I feel like both companies have kind of started to figure it out, and I'm not entirely confident that one will have a significantly better launch than the other. But I think my prediction here is that the Xbox Series X has learned from the mistakes of the Xbox One and is starting to right those problems already, and with the next generation will continue to right them and be incredibly successful in doing that. If we look at the life cycles of the companies, not just the generations, the Xbox One is the third generation of the consoles for Xbox. And as we know, you can look back to the PS3 and a bunch of other console makers. There's the third generation curse that a lot of people talk about. Like PS3, it's ended up selling well eventually, but it did not start off okay. And the Xbox One very clearly falls into that. But if we look at the PS4 after the PS3, obviously it's night and day. And I think there's a chance that Series X is that same kind of flip the switch for Xbox that the PS3 was to the PS4. So I just think that generally if the Xbox Series X has a better launch than PS5 in most people's eyes, that would mean my prediction is right. I don't know. If they're generally the same, then I'd be wrong. I'm thinking that Series X will, in the end, have a better launch, better lead up to launch than the PS5. Period. All right. Two more. We have two more predictions. First one is near and dear to my heart, but I also think it's going to happen. And that is Volition will announce Saints Row 5 as an early 2021 game. As you know from last week, Saints Row the Third was my favorite game of the decade, and not only that is my favorite game of all time. So since Saints Row 3 came out, then Saints Row 4 came out, then Gat Out of Hell came out, then in 2017, I believe, it was Agents of Mayhem that Volition made, and that did not get received well. I didn't like it, and that is up my alley. So what I've heard since then is that they are working on a new Saints Row game, that there has been a new title in development. And I think that if that was 2017, that will have been 4 years since Saints Row, or since Agents of Mayhem came out. And if they are working on a new Saints Row game, it is very possible that it's ready for 2021. And I think that, the start of a new generation would be really great to have it playable there, or at least have it release. And Volition, I'm just really excited about them. I think that it's a really cool series, and I'm legitimately, this is more of just I'm hoping for this, because I think that it's going to be great, as all the Saints Row games have been, specifically 3. I think that Saints Row 5 would just be my most hyped game of all time, and I'm honestly just hoping for this more than really predicting it. But I'm going to put it in here because I love that series, and I cannot wait for more Saints Row. Great. One more prediction. Last prediction is that Rocksteady, which I definitely did not spoil earlier and did not mean to talk about. So Rocksteady will announce a new non-Batman specific game that will release in October and launch with the new consoles afterwards. So, just to clarify, so Rocksteady will announce a new non-Batman specific game. The rumor has been Justice League, which I would be hyped for. Obviously, that would include Batman. That's great. I'm just saying it's not like Batman Arkham whatever, Batman Arkham Universe, Batman Arkham fucking car. And that game, whatever it may be, if it's Justice League or if it's a new IP, will release in October. So it'll probably, I would say, be announced at E3, or at least revealed fully at E3. And it will be released originally in October for PS4 and Xbox One and PC. And then it will launch with the new consoles, PS5, Series X, when they launch. And by that I don't mean it will be backwards compatible. By that I mean there will be a PS5 and Xbox One or Xbox Series X version at launch. We saw that a bunch of times with games from last generation to the current generation, and I think that trend will continue. I don't think this would be the only game that does it, but I think that Rocksteady has been working on a game for like 5 years right now. I'm not angry about it at all, and I think they're ready to announce it. It seems like they're always teasing that they're about to announce something, then they never do, and I just hope for fucking once that they actually announce it and release it, because I'm so hyper excited for that game. Whatever it is. Don't know what it is, but I'm super excited for it. So those are my predictions. By the end of the year, hopefully some of them will have become true, and I will tally those at the end of the year and see what my score was. Hopefully it's not a 0 out of whatever it was. I think that was 7. Hopefully it's not a 0 out of 7, because that would be a failing grade. But odds are it won't be 7 out of 7, because I'm stupid. But yeah, hopefully some of these will come true, and I will be correct in some ways. But that will wrap up the 3rd episode of the NoochieCast. Thank you for listening. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at mbnucci, and you can stay here. These episodes will come out every Friday, and you can also look out for the game that I couldn't talk about. Things will be coming out from that relatively soon. So I'll let you know. I'll definitely let you know about that next week. But other than that, I want to thank you for listening. I'll see you next week.